I'm going to start with the introduction. If people will still join, I can always let them in. But thank you everyone for coming, for spending your evening together with us to learn something before dinner or after dinner, depending on what your plans are. But maybe to make a quick introduction, my name is Caroline. I've been working as a IT recruiter for several years already at Computer Futures. And of course, next to like calling everyone at annoying times when you're not looking for a job, we also like speak to a lot of really interesting people who do a lot of really interesting things, who work with like really cool technologies, or who are like working in like cool startups, for example, Jane, that are doing really cool things. But of course, as a recruiter, the knowledge usually stays with us. And as Computer Futures, we made a commitment to like try to share more knowledge, try to bring people together, people who have interesting stuff to tell, and people who want to learn more. And that's also why I invited Evert tonight. Evert is someone I've known for a couple of years now, I think. Evert, and he's working as a CTO at Chain, and Chain is a healthcare startup or spin-off or scale up, or I don't know how what level we're on at the moment. And tonight he's going to tell us some more about his experiences in building and maintaining an IoT healthcare solution. I will let Evert do his presentations. If you have some questions, we can do a short Q&A at the end, or if there's something you already want to know, maybe type in your question in the chat box and we can go over it at the end of the talk. But so far for my sales pitch, I'll leave the interesting stuff to Evert. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So, hi, hello, my name is Evert van Kouwenberg and I'm the CTO of Jane, a Belgium startup in the healthcare, as Caroline already mentioned. I'm going to talk about IoT in general to give a quick guidance in everything, then how IoT will change the healthcare, the biggest security vulnerabilities, a brief checklist in remediating them, and then a little bit more context about who is Jane actually and what do we do, and how do we leverage the AWS services in building and maintaining our product. So I'm excited to be here. So, and I hope I can give you some insights in the whole IoT stuff. So what is the IoT or the Internet of Things? An IoT system consists of a number of separate parts that communicate with each other. Some just measure something, some just are collecting data, and some send commands, and some do all of this together. These parts are sometimes a few centimeters apart and sometimes on the other side of the world. The components can communicate to each other, M2M or machine-to-machine communication, and if required, they can communicate over the internet. You can also collect, distribute, sell information about the device, the user of the device, and the end user in the end. So to give some numbers, according to the GSM Association, the number of IoT devices is expected to grow to 25 billion devices by the end of 2025. Yes, 25 billion devices. This robust growth is expected to be driven by the increased industry focus on deploying connected ecosystems and the standardization of cellular IoT technologies, the IEEE standards that are passing by. So for me, there are the types of IoT devices can be split up in 4 groups, bringing intelligence and autonomy to systems and processes, such as autonomous driving, industrial smart manufacturing, medical equipment, and home automation. Many of these devices are small, power and cost constrained microcontrol-based systems. You can see it as the end devices, as the system on chips. You have then the devices that have the RTOS operating system, that is the real-time operating systems, or the fully built gateways with a fully Linux on their side. So based on this one, the network bandwidth and the consumer expectations around data privacy and user experience continue to demand more on-device processing, where data is processed on the edge device itself, rather than in the cloud. So for smart home automation or for smart home or home automation, devices can help you control your energy usage, but also make your life more comfortable. The Internet of City can solve traffic congestion issues reduce noise, crime, and pollution based on the data that is gathered, and do some machine learning algorithms on it. I will pick later on this today. And for the thing I'm going to talk about today is the smart health. That is, the average life expectancy continues to rise. Unfortunately, also the number of chronically illnesses. This puts the scarce resources of our health system under pressure. Smart health will combine the technology of wearables, IoT, and AI and machine learning to reduce the weight on this system. So IoT in healthcare. So the cost reduction in diagnosis. This is the less of the precious medical professional time is needed to gather vital statistics and other data like prosthetics, blood and breath sampling, and pacemaker models. Headphones, phones, watches, and similar devices can sense this data automatically, record it, and transmitting this information real time. With the direct communication over the internet, if it is a requirement, it can also be over the local area network. The device that in the clinical setting can convey the information back and forth more precisely, sorting and collecting the data into categories using AI to speed up the diagnosis. Faster diagnosis is yet a step to cost savings, and it can be a valuable aid in minimizing medical mistakes and providing efficient treatment. Remote monitoring of the patient. One benefit of this new technology also is the ability to simultaneously monitor and report statistics. It will be easier to check up on patients with IoT devices that can automatically dispense electric stimulations or doses of medicine while the communication with the doctor and the hospital is instead. Readmission will go down, providing a better quality of life for these patients with a much better quality of care and reduced stress and work for the doctors. Then there is also the possibility to early prevent prevention of diseases. The ability of using the collected sensor data, pushing them to the cloud, and using the cloud of intelligent computers to store the data, search for relationships, and not apparent in humans could speed. And search for relationships at such a high speed that humans never can do that. Imagine the potential inherent in gathering data in real time from thousands of lung cancer patients daily, do the medical study on it, and have your models in like hours instead of years of study. So let's walk through a possible plan of improving in the process. At the top, you can see the normal process. As I'm telling myself, it is the process as is without any devices. So you're not feeling very well, you take some measurements, you schedule an appointment to the doctor, you go to the pharmacy, they go to the doctor makes a diagnose, then you have to go to the pharmacy, you hopefully get better, you go for a checkup, and then you're cured. When we add the first step of the IoT monitoring based on your behavior, based on the measurements that are done via temperature sensors in the room or something else, there can already be some kind of a model that is triggering alerts. Those triggered alerts can provide already some kind of a diagnosis from the doctor. You still have to go to the pharmacy, you get better, you go for a checkup, and you get cured. If you have IoT and the ML monitoring of all the sensor data, then the sensor data can be processed, and there can applied some machine learning models on it or artificial intelligence that they can do the diagnose already. Then it's still, from my side, it still needs some verification. Then the automatic medical delivery can be set up, and then you will eventually get cured. So what about security? The Internet of Things, IoT, is a comprehensive security management, is tantamount to the Internet of Things. So to get a little bit started, let's start with what is security. The quality of a state of being secure to be free from danger. A successful IoT application should have multiple layers of security in place. psychical security, personal security, operational security, communication security, network security, and information security. Internet of Things devices have been the primary force right now behind of the biggest DDoS attacks or botnet attacks in some time. It's a threat that has never been really diminished as the number of IoT device manufacturers and implementers continue to ship products that cannot be properly secured. So let's discuss about the top 5 most common issues. Non-secure updates. So let's imagine you have a fleet of devices already with the firmware on it. You have some security updates and security patches that needs to be done. You put them on a public link where a periodically update application is listening to. Somebody compromises that URL. They can download the sources and they can start decompiling it and finding secret leaks in it. That's something you really don't want to have to Then there is also the lack of authenticated signatures. As I mentioned, if they can gather your software and decompile it, they can find the secrets in it, leaks in it, and so on. So if you sign your application and your binary, it is secured. Then it can be scrambled, or it can be decompiled, or more or less not decompiled. So non-secure data storage, as I've already mentioned, the gateways or the RTOS devices or the end devices, if they don't have any secure data storage, the configuration is easily accessible. I will pick later on or something. The attacker can find encryption keys, authentication keys, can gather personal user data, you name it. If they can access it and it is not securely stored, they can access it and they will find it. Secret keys by default. I just pick out some technologies. I'm not pinpointing the bad ones or the good ones. There are just some issues that I find vulnerable. For example, Zigbee is a very common standard in the home automation, but one security leak in there is that there is a commonly known a default key that is widely used over every Zigbee device that is known. That is for home automation, to wearables, to other things. And even attacker, if he has that key and he is available or in the area when you start the commissioning phase of your device, they can capture the newly transmitted security key and they have fully access to your data because they have that key. One way to prevent this is use the unique installation codes you receive from your manufacturer. Also for Bluetooth, yeah, that's one of the biggest things there. They have the pin is easy to guess. Then the non-encrypted communication. For example, LoRa does not have encryption by default. You don't have to tangle it with LoRaWAN because there it is secured. But yeah, if there is no encryption by default on your wireless communication technology, it can easily be compromised with sniffers. The same with Sigfox. They don't have encryption by default also, and they are limited in data size. So there is no AIS possibility to encrypt your data. That's also a little bit shame because Sigfox has a very wide range. So, and then last but not least, if you have the gateways, there is also a debug interface, and that is mostly also enabled. That is the ability to bypass the read-only protection of your file system. You can, the content can be extracted, the secrets can be extracted from RAM, or the firmware can be extracted from flash. So let's go to a brief checklist in how we can remediate most of these things. Incorporate security at the design phase. The ability to secure data and limit it only those who with the correct permissions is not a new idea and is used extensively in many industries. One can only wonder why connected devices were not subject to the same security principles from the beginning. Applications, so if you don't think about security from the beginning, you will get some issues with it. Application must also continually model, monitor, and iterate the IoT security best practices. You have the OWASP IoT security checklist. I can provide the links. That's a very good list to start up preventing the security. One of the most important aspects of IoT security is the secure communication. All data or information that is stored and is on the move needs to be encrypted to avert data sniffing by intruders. Implementing a strong encryption standard to encrypt the data can prevent several IoT-related security attacks. Other essential techniques such as machine-to-machine authentication, multi-level authentication for APIs and devices, and cloud security are crucial when it comes to securing communication in IoT. To protect the privacy of the users and prevent IoT data breaches, encrypted data at rest and in transit between IoT devices and backend systems by using the standard cryptographic algorithms and fully encrypted key lifecycle management processes to boost the overall security of the user and the data. It's also a very good practice to do the security analytics and analysis. It's all if you build your product and you have all the measurements, everything is in place. You have to do some checks granularly. For example, we ship our product. We allow to publish to 3 IoT topics, to 3 MQTT topics. We introduce a new topic. We are moving topics. Validate and audit your fleet regularly, that it is always having the correct policies and certificates. And it's also a common practice to close everything down and open things instead of have everything open and then close things. So who is Jane actually? As I already mentioned, Jane is a startup in the healthcare. Our team at Jane is a diverse and motivated group of experts on a mission to help improve the quality of life of seniors by delivering a home and residential solution to help you, the family, and the healthcare professionals. Providing a sense of security and trust to the senior and the family is extremely important to us and our #1 priority. This is all privacy by design minded, as we want to respect the life and privacy of our seniors. So our solution at Jane exists of 3 panic buttons, 3 to 6 motion sensors, and the mobile application. The panic buttons are the most known, I suppose. Those are the buttons that the senior is kept closely, and when he pushes the button, the care circle will be notified later on that. Then we have the motion sensors. Those sensors are placed in the different room of the senior's home, best at shoulder height with a nice overview of the room. Then we have the heart of our solution, that is our gateway. The gateway is responsible for the connection, collecting and sending the sensor data to the cloud. All this data is gathered and made available in a mobile application where the family can have an overview of all the events occurred the past 24 hours, have an activity pattern view, and he can set up some alarms. For example, alert me if there is no motion between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., then trigger an alert that there is no motion or not sufficient motion enough. We also have the possibility to do some anomaly detection. So after X amount of days, we have collected enough data to find out some behavioral patterns in the senior's movement. So AWS IoT services. We are heavily relying on AWS and AWS IoT service. For the IoT core, that is based on the MQTT message broker. This is allowing a two-way device-to-device or device cloud communication. It is, for me, seemingly the winning IoT messaging protocol. The leveraging from the certificate provisioning and authentication is also based on, done by AWS. They have a X509 certificate that is changed on provisioning of the device when it first connects to the cloud. And that certificate has one or more policies in what the device can do to our system. And then they have a whole device management setup, which is the possibility that you create things, that is the gateway. Then the thing consists of a thing type, and it can be in one or more thing groups. That's for dividing your fleet. And for example, For every developer at our team, they have a development hub. And if we want to release a new firmware, we can just start an IoT job, releasing that granularly first to the thing group of the developer devices. Why did we choose for AWS? Yeah, it's the managed service. There is practically no installation. It is automatically scaling and it is a pay-as-you-go. It's also an all-in-one solution. We have the message broker, the rules engine, device management, job support, and analytics. And it integrates seamlessly with all the other AWS services. To go a little bit deeper inside of them, I don't have slides for that. So you can see the message broker as the big collection of the data from the gateways. Those data is routed via the rules engine, via a semi-like SQL language, where the topics that the messages are published on, they can be routed to several other AWS features. That's the rules engine, the device manager you have been through. And then we have the job support. The job support is, how you can call it, it is a service that AWS provides also over MQTT to start do some remote actions on your devices. That's fully secured also with all the certificates, and it is also some kind of a queue. So the device, you create a job, the device receives an MQTT message, it downloads the job document, it sees if it can do it, it will do it, and then it will be published back to the end user telling that the job is done. So our architecture in building this whole process, it's the Lambda architecture. It is a data processing architecture to design and handle massive amounts of data. And it's also, we have the batch layer where the machine learning algorithms are running on. And then we have the speed layer where the real time is running on. That is, okay, we detect motion. Okay, do we have an alert? Do we have to send an alert? Is it already sent or not? And so on. And then we have the serving layer that is like serving all the data via the application or via the management platforms and stuff. So this is a brief overview of our whole architecture. What I've just mentioned, you have the message broker, you have the IoT thing that is sending data to the message broker. The data is being processed and put in the data store. We are heavily relying on S3 for our machine learning models, and TimeStream for our time series database, as all the data that we receive is timestamped, and yeah, motion is detected or it is not at a separate point in time. That's the reason why we use a time series database. For the real-time responses, when there is a button press or something, we use AWS Lambdas together with SNS and then our own custom service that is generating the push notifications and stuff. And then at the bottom part, we have the security. That is the service that we use to maintain and having a secured fleet. So AWS Device Defender, as I mentioned already, we have the auditing part, and that is the service that is auditing our fleet constantly. Is a certificate valid? Are there too many certificates? Are the policies okay? Are the connection settings okay? Isn't logging enabled by default? Because sometimes if you have a chatty device for something, you have to get more logs. You can't store too much logs because you have a small end device, but sometimes you have to enable it, receive more logs, and see what is happening. The audit process that is scheduled that will go through all the devices or pick some devices and validate that logging is disabled by default. Then we have the detect phase, and recently announced the machine learning detect. That is where you can monitor devices' behavior on the device metrics. For example, the TCP ports that are open, IP addresses, how many messages is it sending, how many messages it's receiving, bytes in, bytes out. And then you have the cloud side metrics that are the disconnects, the connection attempts, or the authorization failures. Based on those settings, you can create security profiles. And those security profiles, they actively monitoring your fleet based on time. So I missed that slide. So the security profile consists at some kind of behavior. For example, authentication failures. Authentication failures, that are mostly mistakes in your policy. So your end device is starting to communicate with the cloud. It doesn't have permission to publish or subscribe to a certain topic, then it will fail authorizing. You can do an absolute value. So for example, if a device is one time in 5 minutes, has an authorization failures, alert us. You can also have a statistical threshold, for example, the P95 that will go over the entire fleet or team group. If it is statistically going over that value, then it will also notify us. As I also mentioned, you have the machine learning part. That is the profile that AWS provides, and they do some machine learning on your entire fleet. And if there is some chatty device or a device disconnecting or sending too much messages, they use their machine learning models also to alert us. So the conclusion about all of this, the Internet of Things is the concept in which the virtual world of information technology connected to the real world of things. IoT healthcare will benefit patients, families, psychiatrists, hospitals, and insurance companies. They can track patients' adherence to treatment plans or any need for immediate medical attention. IoT enables healthcare professionals to be more watchful and connect with the patient proactively. All right. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, I asked in the chat, how do you handle false positives? As in, when elderly is at home and stays out of the kitchen for an hour, you send an alert, you said?
We have.
But what if she's just reading somewhere or sleeping in or whatever?
If she's reading somewhere, we detect motion in the living room, for example. And we have like a percentile. And if it is exceeding, for example, X amount of %, but there is motion in the living, but not anymore in the kitchen, but there should be motion in the kitchen, then we make that motion alert a little bit in a quarantine phase. If then the motion lacks again in the living and it should be again in the kitchen, then we push up the threshold higher and higher. And yeah, there are some timings that we have to maintain, but it is based on the motion in the room and the entire set of rooms. And there we see if there is more or less, or yeah, I hope if I can.
So it's in all the rooms you check it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of get it. Yeah.
That is the machine learning part. For example, if I myself, I have some rules also to check up my cat to see the system is working, but that isn't a smart alert in our way of thinking. That is something we really want to know. If there is movement between 8 and 9, just inform me.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
You can just unmute if you have a question, and speak. That's the easiest, I think.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was actually wondering if you are thinking about integrating your current solution at the time in the future with solutions like Cortana, or so that we have some in the end something more maybe interactive with the senior.
I don't know Cortana, to be honest, but can you give an example of what it is?
Yeah, it was. It's a bit like Siri, yeah. Okay. So I was wondering, maybe if you are detecting, or the algorithm is detecting something weird, maybe was thinking about, somehow make an intervention. Make the senior participate to the process and not only use the sensors, and maybe more to make the
yeah. That's actually a good question, and that is something that we are looking into. Yeah, as we are kind of vendor locked in AWS, I know it is, so I have to be honest about it. We are having an R&D project that is running, integrating Alexa, for example.
Alexa,
And as we use IoT Core and the IoT features, it is quite easily, I'm not going to say, but it is possible to integrate. And we are also playing also with Apple HomePod in connecting it, because that is the next thing in our solution for me. Then I have a lot of things on my list to validate and that we should need, but to have actual feedback of the users, because now we only have a single device communication. The sensor detects motion or it doesn't detect motion. But if you then can have some interaction with the senior, it would be the next thing that we have. But for now, the technologies that we are using, they don't allow us to do voice communication and stuff, but that is something we are really looking into. We're also looking in several new wireless communications, in new sensors, because now we have the simple motion sensor, but we also have some temperature sensors that we can use, luminance, and we are trying to combine all the data. That's one of the things that's also on our roadmap. We have a luminance sensor. So in our go to sleep and go to bed algorithm, that is based on motion. But if there are some lights blinking or something, there is motion, so the sleep is interrupted. That is an assumption, of course, but it's also a good point that we had is, and that is an actual case, is that we already had some preventive care in detecting that the elderly was going more and more to the toilet at night. And based on the motion data, we were in an early phase in discovering that she was a diabetic person. So for me, it's giving a really cool and added value in allowing the sensor data in the homes. It is just difficult in convincing the senior people that we are not Big Brother and we are not watching them or spying them. It's hard to make them aware that it is helping them. So
yeah, I was asking the question because I guess these integrating these new tracks could make the pattern more accurate in the, I guess.
Yes, so, for sure.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, I had a question about the non-technological aspects of it all.
Yes.
Because of course there's a lot of stuff to do with technology and encryption, but if the people working on it are not aware of the best practices, you've got a problem for sure. So I was wondering, do you have any ideas on or any experience with a lack of expertise in your team or in
as I did not mention yet, we are a startup, a spin-off of Belfius, and Belfius is one of the main banks in Belgium, so we are constantly audited. So also when we deploy a new feature, we have to comply all the security measurements they oblige us to. So we having pen tests, organized pen tests and not organized pen tests. We have to make sure everything is compliant to the security standards. We also have, with the engineering team, we are a small team, but we try to knowledge share and try to trigger each other in making the solution secure, also because we have to. So we do a lot of knowledge sharing. We have sessions, we have external sessions. We have sessions with our hardware supplier that is also giving us the best practices and the next big thing. So for example, the Zigbee issue with the known key, that is something that we received from our supplier, that we have to make use of the installation code, because then only if the installation code and the device reference is compromised by a hacker, then they can get the security key. If once the key is exchanged without that thing, they can never find, never is a big word today, but they can't find it and how do you call it, decrypt it. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I'm just wondering what with the cleaning lady that finds a USB stick sticking out in her way and it drops and she puts it in the wrong computer back or something. I mean, these kind of practices also occur, or unshielded wires that can be tapped, or I don't know what. Those
Yeah,
kind of, that's what I mean, because
yeah, okay. For the unshielded wires, I know our communicate. Yeah, then you have to have physically access to the gateway. That is all the first part. The UART connection that is on there, like the debug interface, we closed it, and every gateway access or the console password, they're all not more accessible. And yeah, if you tap the wire, yeah, the communication is also encrypted via the AWS certificate. So you have to figure out how to receive and read out the device, get the certificates. The certificates are also a little encrypted because the device isn't that strong enough, but you have to compromise a lot of things before you can actually have it. So
yeah. So I'm wondering, if, for example, in a team of, I guess, 10 engineers or something, how much time do you spend on these sessions?
We have also we have our bi-weekly sprint planning, and we talk about the security topics that we are going to talk about at the dev meeting, and that is scheduled for now. It is scheduled once every 3 weeks, and we divide a full hour on security about it. That's my task also. So if it doesn't in the meeting, or the topic isn't there, I failed. So
yeah, all right. Yeah, but that's a good point. I think somebody who owns the security is
that is the main goal of our team, is the actual knowledge sharing. But we also have some everybody has his good points and his weak points, and for everybody with his good points, they own some kind of our solution and the product. So we had somebody that was very good in the front end part, and he is now the owner of the whole subscription and billing model, for example. And now he's training and transferring the knowledge to the whole team so that everybody can pick up when somebody leaves or is in holiday.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Any more questions?
Yeah, maybe another one, but more related to the market. Actually, I was a bit curious because just discovered about the existence of Jane. Found the activity very interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, for the moment, how are you targeting your customers? Are you receiving demand from the government institutions, such hospitals, or that kind?
Okay, so as I mentioned, Janie's existence occurred due Belfius Insurance was looking for new products to sell together with their insurance. They have hired Boston Consultancy Group in creating some kind of a proof of concept, and then they decided to go further with it. Our first solution was really B2C based, so actually directly to the customers, and via social media right now, just step by step, that we can prove our solution is working, also to the board of directors. But the sales strategy was rather difficult and hard, as I already mentioned. The one big issue is we are currently heavily relying on a wired internet connection, and the elderly people we are targeting, they aren't familiar yet with the whole internet part, so they have to have internet. Then you have to have the family and the senior that they have to agree with each other that the solution is there, because we don't have a big brother kind of thing. And then who is going to pay for the solution and stuff. So we found that was a really hard sales cycle. So we started shifting our market more to a B2C and B2E context, B2B and B2E. With B2B, we are currently targeting the accommodation houses and the service flats, because there are still larger areas, but the people live autonomously and they have combined areas. But we found out that is a very easier market because our solution is plug and play, and the current panic button suppliers in the market, they require a hard wiring, or they require to have a telephone line in it in there. And that's the biggest advantage that we have through there, is that we are plug and play, and that we have the sensors also. So it's not only the button. We have also deployed our first 4G hubs. So we aren't, sorry, I can't find the word. We don't need the actual wired internet anymore also. That is also giving sometimes a little trouble, because a 4G connection isn't that stable as an Ethernet connection, but for everything, there is a solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
I have another question, Evert.
Yes.
With Chain, do you notice there are a lot of like competitors on the market that are trying to build something similar, or what's your idea there?
It is beginning. We actually monitor the competitors quite hard. That's just, yeah. We're also a new system. Most of them found as an intrusive system, and there are some competitors in Belgium, but the disadvantage of them is, or they are quite expensive, or they have a lack of technology, or some other thing that is missing. So the machine learning part or the button part. I know there are some smart light bulbs that are detecting the same thing as us. But I know from one of my colleagues that, for example, in the UK, there are a lot of competitors already. And there it is shifted from the technology side, that the radio communication and the internet, it is no problem at all over there. They divide each from each other via the algorithm part and the detection part and the prevention part. That is the shift that they are going to do in the UK. But yeah, Belgium, it's more or less conservative against the UK, especially for Holland also. So we are just trying to figure out what are we going to do. We do surveys. We do also some A/B testing in releasing a new feature granularly to people, and then we track if they use it and they find it useful or not. So it's just a little bit trial and error sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe another, I don't know if it's nasty, but maybe controversial question. Data privacy.
Yes.
How much of the data is owned by the customer? I mean,
the data is fully owned by the customer.
yeah.
So
So they can actually request the data and move it
yes,
to
of
a
course.
competitor, for instance.
Yes, it can be fully requested. And yeah, you also have to have the right to be forgotten. Also, every data is pseudonymized. We have our user data separate. We have our actual sensor data separate. If there is the sensor data, if that is breached, they cannot link it to a user without any help. Then we also, yeah, every machine learning model is built on your actual movement. It is not cross-shared. So it is not targeting, for example, my grandmother cannot be linked with your grandmother because they have the same age and the same pattern. No, it is fully private. And as I mentioned also in one of the beginning, we are looking into upgrading our hardware and then do the machine learning processes on the edge, on the device itself, so that the models and the trained model consists on the gateway itself and isn't in the cloud anymore, except the data that we actually need for the alerting and stuff.
Yeah. All right. And regarding these data, would there be a world, I say, in 20 or 30 years when you're a rich man and Jane is totally successful? Would there be a world where you can actually say, look, I've been with Jane now for 10 years, but I like that company more, that the data is open to the other company, like the Tim Berners-Lee project with data pods?
Yeah. For my opinion right now, I wouldn't do that. It is the data, and we always try to communicate that we are privacy first, privacy by design, and the data is owned by the user and will not be cross-sold. So
No, it's just the other way around. With Tim Berners-Lee's idea is that the data is hosted where the user chooses it is hosted.
Ah, okay.
And
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the POTS project.
Is that the HomePod project? That in the pod project.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you have these data pods. I forgot the name of the project actually, but
yeah. Huh.
Because that would be nice that you can actually use the data. I mean, you could have UK customers coming to you then.
Yes. To be quite honest, I'm trying to figure out my answer. As we are currently bounded on technology right now and the power of our databases and stuff, I would suggest, I don't know if that we do all the processing that we have, but then we can expose it and the user can put it where it is, because data and movement data is cut in stones. You can't undo a movement. So when the processing is done and the model is trained, and for example, we train models for that purpose every day, yeah, that model will be cut in stones, and then we can expose it to the user, and the user can put it where he wants.
Yeah.
Right. Any more questions?
Maybe one question. I'm a bit curious about artificial intelligence and that kind of stuff. How are you making improvements on the algorithms, on the way the data are collected and what is done with these? Are you defining a planning, like every 2 weeks you are releasing a new algorithm, or it's more about based on the number of data that you need to collect to make the algorithms improvements?
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I was finished. Thanks.
No problem. No, our current algorithm is based on the amount of data. So yeah, at first, when you first install the installation, we don't have any clue what are you doing. So then we start collecting data. We trigger the user to put also some alerts in cuttings done by itself. So the actual alerts that the user is tells us that, okay, I want to know that my grandmother is woken up and there is movement in the bedroom between 7 and 8. We trigger them to use them, and in the meanwhile, we start collecting data. After X amount of days, we build up our first pattern of movement, and then we see if they're on a time span. I don't know it out of my head. I think. I don't know it out of my head, but we have a daily pattern, and then we see, for example, every 5 minutes, is there movement up or low the pattern that we have? And then we start up building the thresholds, and when it is triggered a certain level, we start sending the smart notifications, as we call it. We are now evolving into as I mentioned, into the Lambda architecture, because we don't have it fully in place yet. And there we are going to diverse the batch processing and the model making and the training with the actual real-time movements. So when there is a motion, we can directly on real time fire our combined algorithm of that day and see if it is working or not. It is just a proof of concept. We don't know if it will actually work, but that's something we are looking into. And we are also continuously trying to figure out new mathematical algorithms. Our data scientist can give you more insight, because that's not my specialty, but we have used agglomerative clustering to combine days with each other. We are using spatial movements together with some other things in finding out the best way to detect the anomalies. Okay.
And are you making correlations between the measurements, the sensor, and the emergency buttons pressure to maybe?
That is something that we are testing with. So, for example, we are testing it the other way around. So there is a button press to reduce the false positives. If we have movement, we don't fire up the full alarm system. We can give a granular thing from, okay, the button is pressed, but there is movement. You can check up, but you don't have to.
Okay.
But we are also trying the smart alert part, as I mentioned, on your other question. If we trigger a smart alert, the elderly people isn't aware of the smart alert himself. So we are trying to figure out now based on the hardware that we have, if we detect an anomaly, that we can make the elderly also aware of it, so that there isn't any worrying between the family if there isn't something wrong. So to give the idea that we have is, okay, when we detect an anomaly, we start blinking some light, and if the senior sees it, he can walk to the gateway and press confirm, no, there is nothing wrong. Then we can stop the cascading and making everybody worried.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Very interesting.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Maybe one last question, if anyone has one. All right. Ça va. No, then I want to say thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Evert, especially for sharing your knowledge, and everyone for the questions. Some really interesting, some a bit tricky, maybe something to think about. So thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Caroline?
Yes, shoot.
Maybe one question for you. Does the slide of the presentation are going to be shared somewhere? Or?
Yeah, maybe a question, Evert. Do you want to share your presentation afterwards, or is it not possible, or what do you think?
I can share it. That's not a problem. No.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Okido.
Ça va.
Thanks for joining. You. And I don't know if for coming presentation will be kept informed or kept in the loop.
Yeah, of course. I'll send you a message on LinkedIn.
Okay. Okay, very nice. I don't know actually why I have been contacted. Proposed this presentation by Computer Futures. It was a good idea, but I don't know where it came from. I was a bit curious.
I made a lot of propaganda. No, propaganda is not the right word, but
okay, I get it.
With
Screening.
A lot of people. Voilà.
Yeah.
No, but thanks for joining, and the other way around, if you ever have something to share, or you want to give a talk yourself, just let me know.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Yo, ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.